I was chatting to someone on WhatsApp and saying, well, I'm not sure how much wisdom I will impart to you because I'm in very good company. I can see there are some names here that are highly esteemed practitioners and professionals in the industry. But colleagues, really exciting times. I'm joined this morning by a Generation Z colleague who's going to be assisting me in some of the presentations. Of course, we've tried to make it more specific to TES, and we know this is an incredibly large topic. It's an infinite topic, really. You know, you just don't know what the limits are. So I'm going to just take you through some ideas in terms of what I do to explore the benefits of AI in the context of what we do on a daily basis. I've tried to make it specific to TES. So I'm going to be focusing on, how you can use AI to, first of all, do better client needs analysis. I'm also going to be taking a look with my colleague later on at practical implementation, how it can help you. I'll be referred to the issue of recording, for example, and we're going to be sharing with you how to use it to at least augment disciplinary processes and the like. But we're going to get cracking. I hope you enjoy it. We will send you the slides after the session. And my colleague Courtney will also pop in. She is a Gen Z, as I said, much more proficient than I am in respect of AI. And then also we have Cindy from Circle and Square. She's the general manager of Circle and Square, which is our EQ business. She's on as well. And the reason that we are so excited is we see three big forces that are bearing down on us. The first one, of course, is law, and labor law is just changing so rapidly. We saw the publication of the traditional healer regulations last week, and of course, the traditional healer regulations will require traditional healers to register with the Traditional Healers Council. And now, for the first time, we will have more certainty on how to deal with traditional healers' medical certificates. We've had this judgment around the Van Wyk case where non-childbearing parents can access parental leave of up to 4 months. We've got the Cannabis for Private Purposes bill. So, colleagues, we live in an incredibly exciting environment. The big issue is to keep abreast of it. So, the first mega force is labor law, and it's just growing and growing and growing. The second mega force is people, human beings, because in the face of all of this change, the human being has got an impact. And as human beings, we don't necessarily like change, with the result that as organizations, we've got to connect with our staff. We've got to ensure that we give them a safe environment within which they can experiment and that we capacitate them to keep up with this change. Because if we look at the latest research, South Africa is the third highest stress level of all countries in terms of their workers in the workplace. So we mustn't add to that stress. When there's change, we must capacitate staff and engage with them. So the first one's labor law. The second one, of course, is people and the need to ensure they've got the EQ to be resilient and to be adaptive and to be innovative. And then, of course, the third one is today's topic, artificial intelligence. And what we see happening is a convergence of these three mega forces in our organizations. So, colleagues, if someone can just check that everyone's muted, that will be great. So let's get stuck into artificial intelligence in the TES context. Well, we like to start off by asking you to participate. It's all about classifying yourself. What is your status when it comes to artificial intelligence? Are you a digital refugee? What we mean by that is someone who really feels hard done by all of this change with artificial intelligence. So a digital refugee is someone who battles to see how they fit into this new world. It's someone who feels that their cheese has been moved. Then you get the digital immigrant. Now, the digital immigrant, colleagues, is someone who was born or brought up before the widespread use of digital technology. So, those of you that probably uh, when you went to school and even early part of university, maybe, laptops, computers, technology wasn't all the rage. It wasn't really available. But what you've had to do is although you've not grown up with digital platforms and technology, you've had to adapt. So if you feel that you have been able to adapt and acquire these skills, then you're an immigrant. You've immigrated into the world of AI and digitization. The third one, colleagues, is a digital citizen. Now, as its name suggests, a digital citizen was born into this time zone that we're in. The digital citizen is fully conversant with technology, with digital platforms, and not only conversant, but is fully aware of their rights and responsibilities and transact easily on most platforms. And then you have the digital native. And of course, these are the children that we have now that were literally born with cell phones and devices in their hands. So in the chat box, we want to know which of those classifications apply to you. Now, Kevin, you're not allowed to lie, okay? You can't say you're a digital native because I know you're not, right? Okay, I'm only picking on you, Kevin.
But John, you
Yes.
don't have me there because you've got digital refugee, digital immigrant,
Yeah.
digital citizen, but you haven't got digital without IQ.
Kevin,
Where's that go?
the good news is you don't need IQ anymore because artificial intelligence is your IQ. What you do need is EQ. And that's good news for most of us, right? Because we were always classified based on our IQ. But now with digital intelligence and AI, we don't need IQ. We actually just need resilience. So good one, Kev. But nevertheless, colleagues, in the chat box, we would love to see how you stack up. A lot of you saying you digital immigrants. Almin, I see there. Daniela, Mandy, good to see you. Jade, um, Cindy's, oh goodness, Cindy, you being very transparent. Bruce, Turin, can you believe it? So, colleagues, there we go. Mandy, LB, digital immigrants, there you go. So that just gives us a sense of where we are at. Well, colleagues, let's move forward and thank you for that. Now, this is an incredibly important component, and especially for you in the TES and the workforce solutions environment. Colleagues, if we take a look at the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to see huge disruption across various sectors and industries. Now, I've got this little formula that I've put together, and if you want to anticipate the change that is coming down the track, the first thing you got to look at is what is the sector in which you operate. And not only you, of course, because you're client centric, you need to look at these sectors and say, where do most of our revenue come from? So if you're a TES and you've got a lot of revenue coming from the banking industry, insurance industry, or if you are in retail and logistics, maybe, if we look at communications, automotive manufacturers and component manufacturers, colleagues, you will see this research, the purple, tells you the high potential for automation, not augmentation, for automation. And we see it happening. I mean, the banking industry has been absolutely re-engineered, branches closing down, online transactions. The use of cash in transacting is declining at a rapid rate. So the banking industry being totally transformed, and not just transformed, but automated. If you even look at the energy sector, 43% automation. Retail, I mean, we look at the retail e-commerce platforms, Checker60, Uber, Takealot, Dash, etc. Those industries have been transformed. Transform is not just change. Transform is they they've been redefined to the extent they'll never return to where they were previously. So if this is what your clients are going through and you providing your clients with solutions, you can only imagine how you are going to have to adapt and make sure that you are connected to those clients to give them the best proposition. Well, the green, colleagues, is augmentation. So the green part of these bar charts are where the human and the robot work together. So massive disruption by artificial intelligence coming per sector. The next stop is your job, colleagues. If you think of the job that you do and the tasks that are involved in your particular job, you'll see a similar pattern. So if you're doing a lot of writing, emails, reports, research, if you look at language, of course, large language models is a very deep-seated part of artificial intelligence, recruitment and HR. And Courtney's going to show you just now what some of the applications are around recruitment, absolutely, transforming the approach to recruitment using social media and artificial intelligence. Market research, colleagues, personalized marketing, cybersecurity, inventory management, financial analysis, legal research. We're going to show you that as well, colleagues. So it's not only your sector that you have to look at, but then you look at the tasks. And again, you see the significant impact of artificial intelligence on anything that's got to do with the processing of language, of data, of analytics. If you look at the research by the World Economic Forum, the top declining jobs, the top 10, bank tellers, no surprise there, clerical workers, cashiers, data entry clerks, executive secretaries. I really, really think that secretaries are absolutely outdated. I think it's a massive, massive challenge going forward. Well, colleagues, if we take a look at this, and a good colleague of mine has actually just WhatsApped me a picture of a beautiful, beautiful woman, and they now have Miss World for Miss AI. So now you're going to have a Miss World competition, not for human beings, but for those who've designed the most beautiful AI bot. And we're actually going to get you to design a bot just now as well. So just get ready for that. But colleagues, the question is, how are we responding to this in the TES environment? If the job types that we are providing to our clients are changing so rapidly, are we ahead of the pack? I think of Jack Welch, who said, if the rate of change on the outside is greater than the rate of change on the inside, well, then the end is near. We also see the International Labour Organization in the top left-hand side indicating that any form of clerical worker, 58% high disruptive propensity. Technicians and associate professionals, your accountants, your lawyers, your technical positions, professionals, service and sales workers, colleagues, a huge change. So if you want to project the next 5 years and see what your organization will look like in terms of the structure, the skill sets, the number of people, as well as that of your clients, this will give you a good indication of just what's coming down the track. So with that in mind, colleagues, let's move forward then and say, well, from a culture point of view, because we know culture eats strategy for breakfast, we can talk, but it doesn't mean that we're going to deliver the goods. We see that only the paranoid will survive. We almost need to be paranoid about our own relevance, the relevance of our business going forward, because exponential change means consumer behavior changes so quickly that we can get left behind. I mean, look at Stadtkinnico, massive, massive closure of a lot of their particular cinemas. We take a look at Musica, we look at Ellie's, we look at even Pick and Pay that are under the hammer now. And these are businesses that have been around for decades, but We need to be paranoid. Resistance to change is a guarantee for failure. So if you are a digital refugee or if you're a digital immigrant, you need to continue the journey to become a digital citizen and a digital native. When you've got an extra hour, don't go and watch Disney Plus or Netflix. Get stuck into teaching yourself the latest skills. Be paranoid, but positive paranoid. Don't be too stressed. Just be paranoid. Okay. If the rate of change, I've spoken about that. So, colleagues, as leaders on today's call, here's the challenge to you. You need to visualize the future early on and transition through the change to manage it. What are we talking about? Colleagues, some time ago, I had the privilege of working with the Altron Group, and I did a strat session with them, and Robbie Fenter was their chief executive officer at that point. And it was in the late 90s, colleagues. And in the late 90s, I'll never forget Robbie Fenter. He stood up and he held up his cell phone. But in those days, it was one of those bricks, you know, the old Nokia 9110 type huge cell phone. And in the late 90s, he said, listen, everyone, I can't tell you exactly what it's going to look like, but it's coming. The convergence of technology, there will be a day that on your single device, you will have maps, photos, videos, alarms, diaries, emails, everything, a torch, you name it, it will be on one device. And he couldn't tell us that it would look like this. I can't really get it going, but he couldn't tell us it would look like the smartphones of today. But he knew there would be a convergence of technology, and they set off in that direction. And I think for you, my challenge is to say, as leaders, you need to say, we don't know exactly what it's going to look like in 3 to 5 years, but we do have to start heading in that direction. So it's very exciting. So, of course, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but exponential change, Uber growth, exponential, electric vehicles, exponential, media streaming, exponential. I mean, 5 days to get 1 million people on ChatGPT, threads, 1 hour to get 1 million people. Colleagues, this is the rate of change of human behavior in the world we live in right now. And I also mentioned labor law. Labor law, just this year alone, we've had national minimum wage increases, the Cannabis for Private Purposes Bill, the Cyber Crimes Act, the Hate Speech Bill. You know, we've got the Employment Equity Act coming through probably in October this year. Colleagues, the change is significant, and AI is the common factor that can be used to drive productivity, to drive innovation, and to give you the head start that you're looking for. Well, the Kubler-Ross change curve, which Cindy and us, our colleagues, use to talk about transitioning through change, what you do have with AI and this exponential change, colleagues, is you've got people who are shocked. You know, I've come across individuals and senior people in companies that say to me, you know what, John, we're not going to use AI because of data security risks, you know. So they'll do anything they can to avoid having to grapple with this and get out of their comfort zones. Some are in denial, you know. They say, no, this shouldn't be used. It's not right. It's not ethical. What about plagiarism? And yeah, it's just not, the human factor is not there. Then people get frustrated because they realize that this is definitely entrenched. It is embedded into the world we live in. They realize they've now got to come to terms with it, and then they ultimately have to make a decision to dig themselves out of this hole and to embrace change and to use it to ensure that they prosper and that they're successful. But it comes at a price, colleagues. All of this comes at a price. Every decision you make has a price attached to it. So what it means is sacrifice. It means leadership. And by leadership, what it means is that you bring people along, you leave no one behind. And this is why management alone is not going to work. You need to create a safe environment where people can be vulnerable and say, John, I am a digital refugee. I really need help. Please Can you bring me along? Smart trust, a big requirement for this change. If you don't have smart trust, some companies will never get out the back end of this. Individuals will get left behind because all of your staff, even your clients, are at different levels of maturity in respect of this change curve. So we need to dig ourselves out of this comfort zone. And we're actually going to start today. Many of you are already doing it, and well done. But Courtney is going to assist us just now, and she's going to help us get out of our comfort zones and do some stuff together. Well, if we just take a quick look at a bit more theory, colleagues, exponentiality and artificial intelligence requires leadership. Remember, leaders set the tone. We remember the traditional case studies of Kodak and Blockbuster, where the leaders were narrow-minded. The leaders were not prepared, colleagues, to get out of their comfort zones. They would rather stay with what they knew. And of course, those businesses are not around anymore. So when it comes to artificial intelligence, your leadership need to provide clarity. They need to prioritize this, and they need to drive it as a culture. Of course, human change, awareness, then empowerment, reflection, and insight. And over time, we need to enable our employees to change and navigate this. And then, of course, you need technical skills. There's no doubt. And we're going to be showing you some of the unbelievable technical capabilities of some of these AI platforms shortly. I'll always put the slide up and I say to you, colleagues, if I came and knocked at your door now, Mandy Ford, and I said, Mandy, I want to see your WSP for the next 12 months. Henrietta, I want to see your workplace skills plan, Shoba. What are you going to show me? If you show me your workplace skills plan for the next 12 months, am I going to see any programs that teach people how to make sense of things? I mean, in this world we're in with so much uncertainty, you need to make sense. You need to be socially intelligent. The Cybercrimes Act, the hate speech bill, all of these things require intelligence, social intelligence, how to empathize with people. And that's why EQ is so important. You need to be adaptive in your thinking. In other words, we need a growth mindset. We need a mindset that says, I want to explore, I want to adapt and change. We need computational thinking. Courtney's going to take us through prompt engineering. And goodness, you need to get the best results from an AI platform. You need to think a bit like a computer. You need to have that insight. Of course, new media literacy and transdisciplinarity. In other words, you need to be able to bring together different disciplines, finance, HR, IT, marketing and sales. You need to bring that together. You can no longer just be a specialist in a certain area when it comes to AI to get the best results. You need to have a design mindset, which means you need to empathize with your clients. You need to be able to deal with the digital debt. What's digital debt? Well, when you wake up on a Monday morning, you turn your laptop on, well, you're going to have hundreds of emails. That's digital debt, and you need to use your cognitive abilities to manage that effectively. So my question to you, colleagues, am I going to see in your workplace skills plan training on how to chair a disciplinary inquiry? Or am I going to see training on how to make sense, on how to have a design mindset, on how to think like a computer? Well, what we do know, colleagues, is what your clients want from you. Your clients want a proposition that, first of all, is desirable. In other words, your clients want you to understand their needs. And when you do a proposition and around staffing solutions, they want you to know what they need. Do they want your proposition? Especially in your environment, which is highly mature, the TS industry is mature, differentiation is critical. You need to see what your clients want, and AI can help you, and I'll show you that. Secondly, it's got to be viable. In other words, it's got to be financially meaningful, and your margins are always under pressure. There's never been an opportunity like this in the last decade, in my view, to make sure that you drive your costs down and you improve your margins using AI. And then, of course, feasibility. Do we have the technology to allow for this to happen? And in the background, you'll see Ster-Kinekor. I cut this out of the social media post. Ster-Kinekor to cut a third of its workforce. And the reason I pulled this out, colleagues, is if you read the comments of the users, the people like you and I who go to cinemas, you can learn a lot because you need to empathize with them. You know, Jacob says here, business is not sustainable anymore. They need to be more innovative. Jonathan Norton says they're surprised that Kinekor hasn't tanked sooner. DSTV and other streaming services have been taking business away for the last decade. Yusuf says cinema houses need to look at other business models to attract. I'd rather wait for the same title to be released on a streaming service and pay 600 Rand than pay 600 Rand on 2 IMAX tickets. So, colleagues, the point that I'm making is you need to say to yourself in your organization, if your client was to rate your service, do they want it? Is it cost effective? And do you use the right technology platforms to deliver against that? So what do we need? We need a healthy dose of emotional intelligence. When it comes to artificial intelligence, we need to raise consciousness, and that's what today's about. We need to encourage reflection. We need to understand the sector, the job, the tasks we do are fundamentally transforming, and we need to reflect and gain insight. We then need to shift our attitude. And of course, this is the difficult part. You know, the ability to shift your attitude. Anything that you've had to do of any worth has cost you in one way or the other. It's sacrifice, it's investment, and it's going out of your comfort zone. And only then can you embrace change. And that's why we always say when you train on these matters, you can't just train on technical AI. You need to complement it with EQ, and you need to complement it with leadership training, because your leaders are often the challenge. So in other words, when we talk about artificial intelligence, we want to make sure that we design the best outcomes. And those outcomes are our clients. We need to ensure our clients get the best possible solution. Problem is, many of us, we design something that's seemingly amazing, but the client doesn't want it. And artificial intelligence will enable that process. So you might say, but John, you're rambling on. That's cool. Let's get down to business. What will this do for us? Well, the first thing it will do, it will make you infinitely more productive. We'll demonstrate that. You'll be more creative. So if you don't have a lot of creativity embedded in yourself, because we're all different, you can become incredibly creative, and it will save you a huge amount of time. In my day-to-day activities, colleagues, it saves me massive amounts of time. It's interesting, Microsoft actually did research, and they went to employees and said, listen, what would you do if we offered you a monthly free lunch at work, and in return we take Copilot away? What would you choose, the lunch or Copilot? 88% said, we want Copilot. You can the lunch. Okay. So even weekly lunches, Copilot has become more valuable than eating a hamburger that's given to you for free by your employer. The big issue is ethical use of AI. And I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but I want to say the following, colleagues. You've got to develop an artificial intelligence policy and procedure for your organization. Just like you've had to review your cannabis and substance policies, you've had to review your parental leave policies, you've had to review your harassment policies, you need a artificial intelligence policy that deals with these themes. Accountability. You see, colleagues, we have to have human oversight and control. That's why it's called Copilot, because you work together with the robot. You cannot just use the robot, copy and paste. That will be a massive challenge, and some big mistakes have been made in business. You've got to be transparent. In other words, your policy must define the transparency obligations in terms of disclosure around the use of AI. Fairness. In other words, you need to be sure that artificial intelligence does not perpetuate any imbalances of the past. There have been cases like with Amazon where they were recruiting and somehow men were getting more jobs than women. And the reason for that is they were using a basis of information in a world where men were preferred. So what happened was the algorithms were still, perpetuating that particular type of discrimination. You've got to use it in a manner that's reliable and safe. Your data has to be secure, and you want to ensure it's inclusive. In other words, everyone should have equitable access to this. So when we look at a ladder of learning, what we do in our organization, we start off with our clients that we expose to this training with generic skills. And that's what we're sort of touching on today, where the user becomes familiar with broad platforms, Claude, Nova, ChatGPT, and Copilot. So we get the user to build their generic skills in respect of AI to get quick wins and to start making it a habit to use it every day. Once we've got a level of digital competence, we then go to departments. And what we then do is we map their processes, their key processes. So for example, in recruitment, we map from drafting the spec to posting it, to getting responses, to screening those responses and shortlisting and then appointing. So we then go at a departmental level and we then look at automating using artificial intelligence. And then ultimately, the ultimate objective is that after that process of building upward, the organization becomes an organization which has got an absolute citizenship in the world of AI. I'm not going to spend too much time on legislation. I'm just going to talk to legislation broadly, colleagues, because I want us to get into the nitty-gritties. But when it comes to legislation right now, there is no specific legislation in South Africa around artificial intelligence. The closest we get is the POPI Act, Protection of Personal Information Act, the Cyber Crimes Act, and then, of course, your laws around harassment, your hate speech bill, your PAPUDA Act. So right now, we've got a range of laws that direct our conduct in this particular space. The one issue I want to point out very quickly is you get a lot of people who say, John, if we upload our financials onto an AI platform, if we upload CVs, if we upload our policies, how do we know that that information is safe? Can we know that that information is secure and that it doesn't get into the wrong hands and we therefore breach POPI? Now, colleagues, we've looked into this with a relatively high degree of certainty in that if you use reputable AI platforms, that information that you load onto the platform is encrypted. So the first thing is, in its standing state, it is encrypted. Even when you process it, the results you get are encrypted. In other words, they are purely for your use. They cannot be accessed or interpreted or uncoded, decoded by anyone else. The second thing I want to point out to you, and you'll see as we use it just now, as soon as you change your thread and you stop that conversation and you start a new one, it deletes that content. So the only thing that then is happening is the algorithms, the large language models and the deep learning, the machine learning is using your interaction to learn, but it does not store your data. And that's very, very, very important. In fact, Microsoft are so confident, colleagues. Microsoft are so confident about the security of information using Copilot that they indemnify you in respect of any breaches of the GDPR, the POPI Act, etc. So, colleagues, of course, there are many AI platforms. We today are going to be using two platforms. We're going to be using Claude.ai. And there are reasons for that. We find it more useful in certain areas. And we are going to be using Copilot for Microsoft. Copilot for Microsoft and Claude, publicly available for free, but they're also paid for versions and licensed versions. In our organization, we've bought a number of licenses for Copilot. They're about 8,000 Rand a year per license. So you don't just go and buy it for 1,000 staff. You first pilot it, you use key people to be master users of that, and they become familiar with that. And then you slowly but surely expand your utilization of that. So I just wanted to give you a bit of content. We're now going to change gear, colleagues. We're now going to go into actually using artificial intelligence. I'm sure most of you've already used it, but we're going to get everyone on the same page and take you forward in a more interactive engagement. So, Courtney, I'm going to ask you to pop on and maybe just talk to us about prompt engineering. You're welcome to share from your side, and then we can just interact between ourselves as we move along. So thank you very much. Courts, over to you.
John, hi colleagues. Thank you so much for the opportunity to come share some AI knowledge with you today. If at any point you have any questions for me or would like to comment, please just feel free to either raise your hand and unmute yourself or leave a message in the comments. If I can start by just asking that you can give me an indication that my slides are showing. John, I'm not sure if you can maybe just comment. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you very much. Okay, colleagues. So as you know, with AI, we like to overcomplicate everything. So often people come to us and they just say, can you please explain in plain, simple English what it is that's going on here? So that is what John and myself have tried to do. And as I said, if at any point you feel left behind, please just shout. So the first thing I'd like to focus on is prompt engineering, a very scary word. It sounds like you need a very hectic degree to know how to do it. But prompt engineering is effectively a fancy word for the way we engage with large language AI models. So basically, it's etiquette when you're asking questions or asking it to generate some content for you. So there's 5 very easy steps you can do to be able to prompt AI effectively. How AI large language models work, a nice way to think about it is that it's a magnet. And depending on the different keywords and information that you provide AI with, it then goes and it searches all of the internet files that it's got access to, etc. And it pulls all the relevant data sources together when analyzing how it's going to respond to your questions. So this is just an easy 5-step best practice for designing effective prompts. Obviously, the more in detail you go, the more you will adapt them. But the easiest way to start is by assigning your AI bot a role. So for example, if I know that I'm going to be asking it to look at a disciplinary inquiry or something to do with labor law, I will tell it that it is either a labor law expert or a facilitator or a chairperson for a disciplinary inquiry. So it just gives it some context as to which direction it should be looking at the content from. The second thing is styling your output. So do you need it in a report format? Should it take the shape of an email? Are you looking for a message? Would you like an article? And this also helps AI in just deciding how best to put its language. Should it be, what tone should it be? Should it be more formal? What format should it take? Does it need to bold headings or should it be in the form of a message to somebody? Thirdly is to be specific. So for example, if I wanted to refer to the Employment Equity Act when giving its answer to me, or if I know there's a specific case from SAFLI that I would like it to take into consideration when generating a response, I can tell it, go search for this specific case, or here's a hyperlink that you can go look at. The 4th step is to add conditions. So say I only want the Employment Equity Amendment Act to be considered when I'm doing this. Don't use any other legislation. Or say I only want it to be a case study, a specific case study I want your answers from. So very, very important to just make sure that it's looking for the right things and shaping its answer in the right way. And then lastly, it's obviously very, very helpful if you can provide the large language model with data. So this can be, as John said, uploading financial statements if you've got questions about your company's financial performance. More recently, we did an analysis of an event attendance where we uploaded different registration sheets from various years. And the more data you can provide Copilot or any other large language AI model with, the more accurate and specific and appropriate for your organization the responses will be. So if you can just remember these 5 simple steps, it will help you a lot when you are busy using AI bots and models. And you will see often it takes a number of iterations with AI to actually get what you are looking for. So just a really nice starting point to consider. As a next step, I'm going to quickly stop sharing my slides here, and I'm going to ask if anyone has not yet used Copilot or Claude. What I'm going to do is I'm going to paste the hyperlinks to those 2 platforms into the chat box. I really encourage you to do these activities on your own laptops along with me, but if you would prefer to follow, that is also perfectly okay. The sign-up procedures, I'll walk you through them quite quickly. Both of these are free. They are available as a paid subscription too, but the free version will be sufficient for what we are doing today. So if I can quickly just go back to my slides, I've pasted the 2 hyperlinks into the chat box. If you would like to try the exercises with me, I'll quickly just talk you through the step-by-step process. So when you're going onto Copilot, you can simply open the hyperlink in the chat box, log in with your Microsoft account, or if you don't have a Microsoft account yet, you can sign in and create an account with any other email address. It will then probably send you an OTP on that email address if you don't already have an account. Then you simply go back into your Copilot hyperlink and you can agree to the terms and conditions, and it will be then like a chat box that you'll be able to chat to Copilot with. As for Claude, also a very simple sign-up procedure. Any email address, you just open the hyperlink, fill it in. You'll be sent an OTP on the email address, and then it will ask for your cell phone number, and an OTP will be sent there too. And then you can just tell them that you are using it for personal use, and you can accept the terms and conditions, and then it will allow you to start the chat. So let's get practical. I know John promised that we would look at it from a practical viewpoint of how you can use AI in your everyday activities. So again, not going too much into the technical side, but just looking at as a practitioner how you can use it in everyday business activities. We have tried our best to tailor these examples to TESs, but if you want me to try something different or you have any comments or further prompts, just unmute yourselves or pop a note in the chat box and I'll try my best to see what I can do. So for the purposes of today, we've created a fictitious company. It's a TES called Future Thinking Now. You'll notice that's also our GBS slogan. TES is a startup known for its innovative approach to problem solving and a forward-thinking culture. So as the company continues to expand its team, it's got a new MD named Tony. So you can see there on the right-hand side of my screen, that is Copilot's version of what Tony will look like at Future Thinking Now, based on the information I gave it. So one of the beauties of Copilot is that it's able to generate images. This isn't a feature available in many free AI chatbots, and it is actually very good. John and I often use it for images in our slideshows, but for the purposes of today, I would encourage you to try to create your own little avatar. It's always lots of fun when we create avatars of our colleagues or of ourselves. We often have a good chuckle. So I will just explain using this activity how I would approach prompting. So as we said, we have to specify that it needs to be a specific task. So please make me a female avatar. It should have long honey blonde hair, dark blue eyes, a roundish face, prominent cheekbones, and a content facial expression. I also went so far as to tell it should be dressed in horse riding clothing. Some of you will know that's a passion of mine, so I had lots of fun doing this. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to display on my screen how I would go about actually doing this on Copilot. I would go and I would copy my prompt. I would have obviously typed that out into the text box. back to my Copilot browser. This is what it should look like in Copilot once you have signed up. I'm privileged enough to have the paid-for version, so yours might look slightly different. It won't have the option to access work over here. It will only be web. And then you make sure that it's set to creative. Then I can go into my chat box and I can ask it to please make me a female avatar with long honey blonde hair, etc., etc. Sometimes you'll see that Copilot gets a bit confused, and I have to sometimes go as far as to say, please generate an image, because it won't understand that I want an image and not just a description of how my character will look. So you can see there, if I just submit my response, Copilot's having a little think about it. It'll try to create that for me. Sometimes the results are very funny, so you might have to iterate a few times. It's having a little think. And as I said, if you have managed to sign in, there we go. So you can see it even gives me a variety of different styles and options. There's a more cartoonish version, whereas the one on the bottom left-hand side is a more realistic version. So if you have downloaded Copilot, I would encourage you to try and create an avatar of yourself, or maybe even a colleague for a good laugh, and share it with us in the chat box. Usually what it will sometimes do is just troubleshooting from experience. It might say to you that this is only available if you log in with your personal account, and that's no problem. You just then go to your little profile account there and you can say switch to personal account and then re-log in into a personal account. Just one of those little niggles when using free Copilot. So if you can, give that a bash. We would love to see your avatars in the chat box. It's always an entertaining activity. And while you're busy playing with that, I will move on to the next example. So moving into a more serious theme, we look at our pestle analyses. So as everyone who's ever done one of these know, to do an accurate and detailed pestle analysis, it can take hours. So our dear friend Tony has been invited by a South African automotive component manufacturer. For the purposes of this, we've named it Spring, which manufactures vehicle springs, to present a proposition on how TESs can assist in their business. She goes to her AI platform and fills in the following prompt. Do a pestle analysis of the automotive component industry in SA, benchmarking us against other similar automotive manufacturing businesses. Provide 3 points per pestle dimension. So you can see there we've given it some context, we've told it what we want it to do, and then we've even shaped the output that we want 3 points per point of the pestle analysis. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now copy my prompt, and for the purposes of this exercise, I'm going to switch over to Claude. What John and myself have found is that when it comes to iterative usable information, Claude is more accurate than Copilot in its free version. So I would encourage when doing these activities to rather use Claude than Copilot. I will paste that prompt now into the chat box and I will send it off. And once again, you can see in a matter of seconds, Claude's able to scan the internet, company documents that are uploaded on their websites in the public domain, and it's able to do a full pestle analysis of the automotive component industry in South Africa. So you can see there how it's responded to our shaping its output. It's got 3 points under each of the pestle analysis elements. You can see there that there's government support under the political elements, like the Automotive Production and Development Program, that there's certain trade agreements, and there is political stability concerns, especially with the recent elections, affecting investor confidence. The economic factors you see there, it picks up that our exchange rates are fluctuating. I think everyone has felt that's ordered from Shein or Temu, that we can definitely see more strict implications coming through, high unemployment rates and economic growth rates lagging behind other emerging markets, and so on and so forth. I won't bore you with the detail, but there you can see it's gone and done an entire pestle analysis of the automotive component industry. Really, really exciting. And you can imagine, obviously, this needs to be looked at and seen by a professional and fact-checked, but it's given us a base to work off and go and build on further in a matter of seconds. This would have taken hours to do if it was a single human being. So really, really nice example. I would encourage you to please go in your own time and look at your particular industry, your particular business. You can even go so specific as to list specific competitors you'd like it to compare you with, or specific pest style elements you wanted to take into consideration. So very, very, very exciting stuff. So now what we do is we continue our chat with Claude. We now want to take it a step further and do a SWOT analysis. So now Tony's sitting with these results, and she says, having obtained the results of the pest style, now you want to establish how well positioned Spring is in the industry. So she can now go back to her chat and ask Claude to do a SWOT analysis of SS in the context of the pest style analysis, by benchmarking against other automotive component industry players in South Africa. Again, shaping the output, we want 5 points per SWOT dimension. So I'll simply go into my slide. Obviously, I would type this out into my actual chat bot. I would tell it now, thank you, Claude. I love using Manners on Copilot and Claude because it actually, I found, some people might not agree, but it gives me much better results if I use good Manners. So let's see. If the computers ever do take over one day, I want to make sure that I am in right standing. So you can see there, it's gone and once again considered all of the elements in our pest style analysis, and it now goes and it looks at the different benchmarkings in terms of SWOT, considering its competitors. So you can see there, obviously, because SS is a fictitious company, it's going to be a bit light on details, but it's assumed that it's got an established presence in the South African market, potential cost advantages because it's picked up that it's a local manufacturer. It's got, hopefully, relationships with existing OEMs and tier 1 suppliers, etc., etc. Then it says it's got a lack of scale, possible limitations, exposure to local economic volatility, and then it also looks at opportunities and threats. So what I can go and do is I can even ask it, because it hasn't really touched as much on the competitors as I would like it to have done. So I can say, please list some other automotive component manufacturers in South Africa that SS can benchmark against. So let's see what it comes back with. It's again scaling the whole internet and all the documentation it can find. And there we go, Met Air, Automode, Robert Bosch, Alfred Teves brake systems, etc., etc. What I can even do is say, please create a table comparing the SWOTs, or rather type it out, clarity, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats facing these organizations. Once again, I've shaped the output. I've told it I want it done in a table. There you can see. It even tells me that it might not be able to capture all of the company's situations because of the limited access it has to their private information. But there you can go. You can see it's gone and it looked at Met Air, Automold, Robert Bosch, and it's listed some potential strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats for each. So you can imagine when you are busy doing some competitor benchmarking, or you are busy looking at the environment in which your organization is operating, how much simpler and faster Copilot and Claude can help you just gather the information. As we always say at Global, that Copilot and AI is not going to take your job, but a person who knows how to use it correctly may just well. So it's very important to understand that you still are responsible as the human being for checking the facts and checking the information in these responses are accurate and they make sense, given your insight and your professionalism in the industry. So now we move on to our next example. We can ask it to generate a client proposal for us. So you can see here that Tony now has obtained the results of the pest style and the SWOT, for the automotive components industry, and she wants to establish what top 10 strategic imperatives there are for SS in the industry. So she now goes back into Claude and she asks it, using the PESTEL and SWOT analysis results, please draft the top 10 strategic imperatives that SS should focus on over the next 3 years. So let's see what Claude has to say about that. Obviously, given once again that SS is a fictitious organization, it won't be as accurate as we'd like, but you can see the principle. It's able to go and use all of the information it's comprehended and compiled, as well as the information available on the web and through other different sources. But based on the issues facing companies such as SS in South Africa, these are the top 10 strategic imperatives. So as we all know, as we are on this call today, technological innovation, things are changing so much in the electric and hybrid vehicle space. Some experts believe that by 2030, there will be a huge tax implication for people not driving electric and hybrid vehicles. So component manufacturers are going to have to consider more and more how they can align with international standards going forward. Market expansion, leveraging the AFC FTA agreement. I won't lie, I don't know what that is, but it looks like it is a South African agreement that's been signed in. Skills development, we need to implement training programs to ensure that we've got the skills to meet these technological innovations referred to in point 1. Supply chain resilience, we need to strengthen and diversify the supply chain. Sustainability, obviously strategic partnerships, once again, digital transformation, being thought leaders in the 4.0 industry, product diversification, cost optimization, and then very importantly in South Africa, compliance and governance with different laws such as BEE. So you can see a very comprehensive, nice starting point for Tony when she's busy giving her advice to SS. So a great activity to go try on your own on those 2 different platforms to see how your organization stacks up and what your top 10 strategic imperatives should be according to AI analysis. So now we look at human resources objectives. So building on to our example, we've obtained all the results. We've got our top 10 imperatives for the automotive components industry. Now we want to establish what top 7 strategic HRLR imperatives there are for SS in the automotive components industry. So you ask Copilot or Claude to use the PESTEL SWOT and imperative analysis results and draft the top 10 strategic human resources and labor relations imperatives that it should consider over the next 3 years. So we go and we take our prompt. We go back into our Claude bot over here. I can ask it to use all of the results. We can see it already touched on the labor law and the labor relations and human resources results in here by stating that there's a huge need for skills development. We've asked it to now dig deeper. Once again, we see skills development and reskilling, very important with the changing requirements of the market. Talent acquisition and retention, it's going to be harder and harder to find and keep these skills as they become more in demand. Labor relations management, strengthen relationships with unions and employee reps, diversity and inclusion, flexible work arrangements, keeping in line with the 4th Industrial Revolution, hybrid work and work from home to ensure that you retain and keep a happy workforce, health and safety, obviously very important in automotive manufacturing, and then succession planning and leadership development, always an important part of running a business for sustainability. So you can see there that even with a fictitious organization with very little information available to Claude, just by telling it it's an automotive components manufacturer, it's been able to use its comprehension skills, its logical thinking, and also the way we've put the questions to Claude. We've almost educated him in exactly what we want its output to be, how it's assisted in giving us all of this information as a starting point that would have taken us hours and days if we were doing it in our own time and own power. So the TS proposition design. We now want to establish at a high level what the contribution of temporary employment services can be to SS before becoming too specific. So we can go back into Claude and ask it that in relation to the strategic business objectives, as well as the HR and LR focus areas, please list and describe the benefits that a TES can provide to an organization such as Spring. You can access various available sources of information on TES, TWA in demonstrating how the SS objectives can be enabled. So let's copy that once again, go back into our conversation with Claude and ask it to answer our next question. So you can see it's busy considering all of the previous information in the chat as well as scouring the web. And it says here, a temporary employment service can provide several benefits to Spring in relation to its strategic business objectives and its HR/LR focus area. Here is a list with descriptions drawing from various sources on TES TWA practice. So flexibility in workforce management. It can adjust the workforce quickly and respond to the fluctuating demand and align with the need for adaptability. And it even goes and it refers back to SWOT analysis and states that it's crucial for the automotive industry, which often experiences cyclical demand. Obviously, supply and demand, very important when it comes to TES. Cost optimization. By using a TES for non-core or project-based roles, Spring can reduce overhead costs associated with full-time employees, supporting the cost optimization imperative. Specialized skills, they can source and provide these skills without the organizations necessarily having to go and do it themselves. Reduced administrative burden, compliance management, keeping the talent pipeline going, skills development support, labor relations buffer, rapid market expansion, and project-based staffing. So you can see how in a matter of seconds, it's been able to give the TES the starting point of how it can go now and approach Spring and recommend how they can benefit from using their services. Something that would have taken a long time can now be put forward to them in a matter of minutes. Very, very exciting. So we can move on to our next slide here. We now want to provide examples of businesses and metrics specifically that could be measured to establish the benefits of TESs and TWAs to Spring. We ask it to consider all of the previous results from our SWOT, our PESTEL, our strategic priorities, and our top 7 business HR/LR metrics and focuses. And we can ask it to measure the impact of the TES partnership. So we can once again copy our prompt, go back into Claude, paste our prompt to Claude, wait for it to consider everything, and there we go. It gives us 10 metrics that we can suggest SS uses to measure the benefits that TWAs have provided them with. So you can use the cost savings ratio, it's gone and picked that up, time to hire, skills gap closure rates, project completion rates, compliance adherence score, workforce flexibility index, quality control matrix, employee conversion rates, innovation contribution, and market expansion. It even goes further and says that you need to have some additional considerations. You can conduct satisfaction surveys. You can even ask Copilot or Claude to recommend questions based on all of the elements in this conversation to create a survey for you with questions that you can put forward to figure out the impact of TSs. You calculate your ROI based on the overall performance of the TS partnership. You can compare it against the quantifiable benefits, so your cost savings, productivity increases. You can benchmark, compare it against industry standards or historical data, and then obviously your legal compliance. You can ensure all your metrics and data collection methods comply with labor laws and data protection regulations such as POPI and PIA. So you can see there it's gone and it's looked at all the different metrics that you could suggest that SS could use to tangibly measure the benefits that the TESs have provided them with. So you can imagine when you're sitting with a client and going through that, it can be very, very helpful. Another beautiful function of AI is policy generation. Gone are the days where you have to sit and type out an entire document on Word from purely your knowledge and your information. Tony can simply go and ask Claude or Copilot to design a harassment policy to ensure that the TS on site at SS comply with the harassment policy. So we can ask it to draft a harassment policy that outlines the company's approach to the prevention, elimination, and dealing with harassment at the workplace. Include information from the attached code on harassment. So what I can do is I can quickly go back into Claude. I can ask it here. What I'm going to quickly do is try and find that code on harassment. There we go. If you can just give me 2 seconds to download it. Apologies, I'm not sure why it is taking so long. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, because it's taking so long to reply to me, I'm going to just ask it to refer to the code of good practice on harassment. Sorry, I see I lost my prompt over there. I'm just going to go find it again quickly. There we go. Include information from the code of harassment in South Africa. Just give it some context so it can go look for the information in the document for me. And there we go. Here's a draft harassment policy for Spring, incorporating elements from the Code of Good Practice on the Prevention and Elimination of Harassment in the Workplace 2022 in South Africa. So you can see, even though I wasn't able to necessarily find the actual document, it was able to go and look for it on the internet and draw the information out of it. So there you go. It even goes and outlines the purpose and scope, gives a definition on harassment, lists the different forms of harassment that will be considered. You can see there, prevention measures, reporting procedures, etc., etc. So obviously it's a very light policy on harassment. It would need an expert to still then go back and look at it and ensure nothing's been left out, but a really nice starting point when companies need to formulate their own policies. You can then even see, I'll show you out of interest sake, that you can go and you can post the same prompt into Copilot, and it will give you a very similar result. I've just found that the Claude, as I said earlier, gives a much more usable policy. So there we go, harassment policy. Also gives us its preamble. Copilot is a bit slower than Claude, I must say, but it is sometimes more detailed. Like for this example, it almost looks like Claude's harassment policy is a bit more usable than the one Claude gave me. So it's very nice to also use these two platforms in conjunction to improve on the different answers, or to just maybe get two slightly different viewpoints to make sure that you aren't missing anything. Moving on to the next example. Job profiling. So I think this is a really, really cool function of Claude and Copilot and any AI platform. Tony has been assigned the task of profiling, grading, and evaluating the job of a junior HR officer within the company. This involves defining the responsibilities, qualifications, performance criteria of the role to ensure its alignment with FTN, Future Thinking Now's objectives and culture. She goes to her AI platform and fills in the following prompt. Generate a detailed job profile, including responsibilities, qualifications, and performance expectations for the position of a junior HR officer at Future Thinking Now. Additionally, provide guidance on grading and evaluating the job to ensure its alignment with company objectives and industry standards. So we can go and copy that across. What I'm going to do now, I'll show you, is whenever I start a new topic, so for example, we're done with the PESTEL analysis and the SWOT, I like to start a new conversation because I think it just gives Claude some better context in terms of not to refer to the previous information, that we're starting on a blank slate, and anything I ask it now shouldn't necessarily take the previous responses into consideration. So I go to my control bar and I press Start New Chat, and I go and I post my new prompt into the chat box. Let's see what Claude has to say. So there we go. Here's a detailed job profile for a junior HR officer at Future Thinking Now, along with guidance on grading and evaluating the position. Goes and outlines the title, the company, the person it recommends the individual should report to, a short summary of what a junior HR officer would be expected to do, as well as its key responsibilities and qualifications. It recommends that the individual will have at least a bachelor's degree in HR, and additional HR certification would be a plus. They should have at least 0 to 2 years of experience, and internship experience would be highly valued. It then goes and lists the performance expectations, as well as guidance on how the company or Tony can go about evaluating and grading the job using a points-based system, and it's considering the various factors compared to markets, internal equity, etc., etc. So really, really useful when outlining jobs when you're busy recruiting for clients or yourselves. So moving on that example, we can go to the next step. She now needs to fill this position. So she's now a digital native, as John would say, or rather a digital immigrant. She has been tasked with recruiting this individual. Obviously, she's going to go to LinkedIn Jobs to fill the post. She now needs to, though, think of a well-thought-out advertisement that she can go and post on LinkedIn. So she asks Claude to compile an advert for the position of junior HR officer that she can go then and post on LinkedIn. It should highlight the key responsibilities and aim to attract top talent who are passionate about HR. So we can go and copy our prompt across. We obviously can continue in the same chat because it's got to do with the HR junior officer job. And there we go. In a matter of seconds, it's given us a really nice, catchy little post. Are you passionate about people and eager to kickstart your HR career? You can see how we've shaped the response by telling it needs to go on LinkedIn. It's catchy, to the point, bullet points, quick to refer to, even go so far as to tell you why you should join Future Thinking Now. Are you ready to shape the future of HR? Apply now, start your journey. And it even says to apply, submit your resume and a brief cover letter. Even gives me the top 3 relevant hashtags that I can use for SEO to make sure that the right people are seeing my posts. And it even tells me that I must go through it and make sure it's suitable for LinkedIn, and it should catch the eye of potential candidates. So very, very cool. You can obviously then go and customize it to how you would like it to appear, add some additional details in, and simply copy that across onto LinkedIn. So now Tony has received loads of CVs on her LinkedIn advert. She needs to go through them, compare them all to the job profile, and then decide on the top 3, which she has done now, but now she wants some more detailed analysis of the different PDFs of the CVs compared to the job profile. So what I've done is I've created a file with the 3 CVs. They're obviously fictitious. I've used 3 of our employee CVs, as well as in that PDF, the job profile and the job advert that I posted on LinkedIn. So what I'm going to go do now is copy that document into Claude and ask it to use that and tabulate the key qualifications, experiences, and skills of each candidate, and to even go so far as to suggest to me the best applicant based on their alignment with job criteria and company culture. So what I can do now is once again go back into my chat. It's still got to do with the same topic. I can click the little paperclip icon that is attached in Claude. And you can see there on my screen, I've created a file called CVs and Job Profile. How I did this is there's an amazing free website called ilovepdf.com. It allows you to cut and join and merge and change the order of PDF documents. It's a free resource, very, very helpful. I then go and make sure that my document uploads along with my prompt. And let's see what Claude has to say, who the best applicant would be. So you can see once again, we formatted the output, we've modeled it, we've told it we want it in a table. It's gone, and even though all of these CVs are in very different formats, by the way, none of them are standardized, it's been able to draw the key criteria, as well as go and look for the information in each of the CVs and put it in a consistent, easy to understand and compare matrix. You can see there it's got John, it's got Wandile and it's got Tembi. It's pulled through their qualifications, their experience, their main relevant problem-solving skills and communication skills. You can see there we listed that Microsoft Office proficiency is a criteria, but none of the CVs include specific details on that, which can be something we can ask in interviews. And then it goes and it analyzes the different applicants. It says, yo, John, he's amazing, but he's overqualified for the job of a junior position. Not appropriate. It says here, here's Wandile. He's probably the most suitable out of all of the individuals. He's got 2 years of experience in HR consulting, focusing on employment equity and diversity management, and his background aligns well. So you can see there it's been able to use its comprehension skills to draw on all the factors and say he's probably the most suitable. Like John, Tembi is also overqualified for the position. She's got too much experience and is currently a CEO, so she's not going to be suitable. Based on this, Wandile is the best because of these reasons. So you can imagine when you've got hundreds of CVs, all in different formats, when you're busy recruiting for a position, you don't have time necessarily to go and highlight and manually see, okay, so-and-so has this, that person has that. You can upload all of these documents and get it put into a table, ask it to consider the top 3 applicants, and then you can see how it will make recruiting so much more efficient and effective when you are busy looking at various job types. So a very important factor to consider here is, once again, Copilot is not autopilot. You still need to go and check the results. You need to make sure that it hasn't discriminated when recruiting. For example, Amazon recently developed a bot, an AI system for recruitment, but it educated the system of the last 35 years of information and recruitment practices at Amazon. And inevitably, using historical practice, the system actually gave preference to male candidates over female candidates because that is the practices that happened in the past. So Amazon had to then go back and look at the whole way they had educated this bot in recruitment. So just something to consider when you are using AI for recruiting and analyzing CVs. But very exciting. You can see the huge potential it holds in speeding up this process. And that is in a free version. You can imagine when you've gone and developed a specific bot for your organization, how much more accurate and effective it's going to be. So just another example, I went and I uploaded the same information into Copilot rather than Claude. And you can see it gave me a very similar table, not as detailed, but it also agreed that Wandile would probably, out of the 3, be the best candidate for the job. So now Tony has to actually go and interview these top 3 shortlisted applicants. She now needs to come up with questions, and she goes to Claude and asks it to refer to the responsibilities contained in the job profile and generate an interview questionnaire using the STAR model. And to then, once again, we shape the output, put it in a matrix format that can easily be used to record the responses. So if we go and we copy that, go back into our chat, it's still on the same topic of recruitment. We can paste that in. And there we go. In a matter of seconds, once again, we've got our 10 questions in the matrix. If I can scroll to the side, you can see that it's put it, sorry, I think I broke Claude. There we go. You can see that it's put it into a table format, and it's given a situation, task, action, and result, as well as any additional notes you want to make based off of the applicant's responses. So very, very amazing in its ability to draw out of large data sets and simplify it into 10 questions that will help you analyze whether this individual will be suitable for the role or not. So there's just another example. As I said, I love testing it on both platforms to compare and build on the answers. And you can see that Copilot has given very similar questions and very similar format to Claude. And it's even gone into more detail and recommended that you can ask the situation questions. They must describe the context and the need for the recruitment when they were assisting with the recruitment process. So it builds even deeper into how you should approach asking these interview questions. As I mentioned earlier, when we were doing our spring example, AI can be super, super useful in terms of survey generation. So Tony now can use Copilot to generate a culture climate survey. She uses the below prompt, develop a set of questions for a culture climate survey to assess the organizational culture and employee perceptions at Future Thinking Now. The survey should cover key areas such as workplace environment, leadership, communication, diversity and inclusion, and employee engagement. It should aim to gather actionable insights to identify strengths and areas for improvement and opportunities for enhancing culture and performance at FTN. So this is obviously now a new topic moving on from the recruitment example. We can copy that across and start a new conversation with Claude. And I can go and paste my question there. It's going to have a little think about it. And there we go. Workplace environments. It even goes so far as to outline what different questions will help find different findings. So it groups them under the workplace environment. How would you overall rate your satisfaction? Do you feel that you have the necessary resources? It then goes and asks about leadership, communication, diversity and inclusion, and employee engagement, innovation and creativity, teamwork and collaboration. So it's given me 31 questions here. So obviously, I'm not going to expect my employees to go and answer 31 questions necessarily. So I'm going to ask it to please simplify this to 10 questions without compromising the information we are aiming to gather. There we go. And in a matter of seconds, it's able to go and dig through these questions and put it into 10 questions that will still include all of the necessary information we're hoping to find out. What we can do from this point on, we can go and use a platform such as Jotform. That's our platform of use. And we can go and generate an actual survey using these results. I mean, often we have to pay organizations huge amounts to go and do this for us. Now we can pull it internally, get live access to the data, and in 2 or 3 days, we've put together the survey, sent it out to our organization to be done online, receive the results back, and you can even then upload a PDF copy or an Excel copy of your results into Claude or Copilot and ask it to please identify the key areas for concern, to please look at areas that we're doing well in, to suggest strategies on how Future Thinking Now can prevent any negative culture in the organization, and to also then list an action plan maybe that you can take forward to leadership to suggest how you can improve company culture in your organization. So another amazing, amazing use of AI. You can see the collaboration of platforms coming in here, Jotform, Copilot, and even QR code generators. If the employee doesn't necessarily want to go and click on a link, you can print out a QR code. Also, there's a application called QR Monkey. It's a free application. Any hyperlink you want, it will transform it into a QR code that can be easily scanned and pasted up in your office or on a slideshow. We've recently even switched from doing our training feedback forms on pen and paper to doing it on Jotform in a QR code format that's easy to analyze, and we often ask for reports from Claude or Copilot to tell us how we are doing. So really, really amazing application there. At this point, I'm going to hand back to John to go through a disciplinary inquiry example with you on how Claude and Copilot can be really, really useful in drafting charges, formulating evidence in chief and cross-examination questions, and how transcription and AI can really, really assist in speeding up this previously difficult process. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share with you. If you do have any questions at any point, feel free to reach out. We'd love to chat with you further. I'm only seeing now all the awesome little avatars in the chat box. Thank you so much for engaging. I see here Walter looks like Johnny Bravo. There's 6 laughing faces. The beauty of AI is it can make whatever you ask it to. So really, really cool. And thank you so much for the opportunity.
Sports, thank you very much. That was incredibly insightful. And yeah, thanks for the practical and personable way in which you did that. So colleagues, the principle of what Courtney covered is ultimately to be client-centric. That's why we went through the PESTEL and the SWOT analysis, because as you design your particular solutions for your clients, you want to empathize with them and you want to understand their environment. One thing I wanted to do before I close off talking about disciplinary inquiries and giving you a final example is, let's say, for example, you want to do a presentation to a company. Now, I've taken the Met Air Group. The Met Air Group is a listed business. It contains a range of automotive component manufacturers like Supreme Spring, like First National Battery, and a range of other subsidiaries. So if we wanted to get insight into the Met Air Group, what I've done is, because they're a listed business, I've downloaded their integrated annual report. And for those of you who know how listed companies work, this report is a few hundred pages long. So what you could do is to say, I need to gain insight into the strategic imperatives of the Met Air Group in order to design a meaningful workforce solutions proposition. Please refer to the attached integrated annual report to assist, and list the top 10 strategic imperatives. So what it does, and hopefully will do because it's a very, very large file, is it takes hundreds of pages of the integrated annual report. Now, you know, that report includes the financials, it includes the threats, it includes the risk register, it includes the very, very strategic DNA of the Met Air Group. So what it's doing is it's combing through that information. It understands that as a TS service provider, I need to understand how to position my proposition to them. So here you can see, colleagues, it's gone and it's pulled out the integrated annual report for Met Air for 2023, and it's given the top 10 strategic initiatives. We know they have had leadership changes, CEO changes, so that's one of the issues that you've got to bear in mind. Find out more about the new leadership. What kinds of people are they? What are their ego states? Improving profitability. And they even tell you specifically which of the subsidiaries, profitability in particular. They need to lower their debt levels because they've got an issue in respect of cash flow. So as a TES, we all know I'm not saying you're a bank, but you certainly can help organizations that are struggling with working capital management, restructuring of the balance sheet. So really just to say, look, developing capacity and agility to deal with increased complexity. So there it talks about skills development. How do you bring your skills development functions into this mix? Employee well-being, for example, customer needs, and various other propositions. So I really just wanted to show you how, again, very, very quickly, you can gather information on your clients. And you can obviously, as Courtney did, you can take this information and say, well, given this, how many employees do they employ? How many are permanent? How many are temporary? What is the payroll amount? You can then even go into saying, you know, what are the cost savings going to be attached to them using a TES, given that it's a procurement item rather than a payroll item. Well, colleagues, I think we have probably spoken you into a coma. So I'm just going to end off with something a bit closer to home before we can open up maybe for any questions and answers. Now, I'm going to pick on one of you. I'm actually going to pick on my good friend Kevin Cowley, because Kevin and I spent lots of time together at the ILO in Geneva. We walked around Geneva Lake more times than we can remember. And really, Kevin, I'm going to pick on you. Nothing personal, right? But here we go. I am a line manager, and Kevin is my employee. Today, Kevin arrived late for work at 0800 instead of 0800. He also had bloodshot eyes, and his behavior was unusual compared to how I have come to know him. He tested positive for cannabis, and as a result was sent home. Full stop. I need to take disciplinary action against Kevin. Please draft 3 potential disciplinary charges that I can put to Kevin. Okay. Now what I do, colleagues, is I can attach my company's disciplinary code. So let me go and look for a disciplinary code quickly. Hopefully I'll find one fairly easily. Okay, I found a disciplinary code. I've attached the disciplinary code. How exciting. And I'm going to try and find a substance policy as well. So let me find a substance policy, cannabis policy. Let's see, cannabis. There we go, substance abuse policy, cannabis policy for company. There we go. So colleagues, as you can see, I'm a line manager. As you know, a lot of line managers are not technically astute when it comes to labor relations and labor law. They do other stuff. So now I can go into this and I can ask it to draft me 3 potential charges to put to my good friend Kevin. Well, it then tells me specifically, based on the information provided and the company policies, here are 3. Late arrival for work without good reason. Colleagues, see what it does. It even goes and it cites the category of the disciplinary code as an offense late for work or leaving early without good reason. Secondly, being under the influence of an intoxicating substance at work falls under category A of the disciplinary code, and then it says, that's category A. Violation of the company's cannabis policy, which expressly prohibits using, possessing, or being under the influence. So you can see immediately the quality of the charges, the content, the ability for Kevin now to be issued with these charges and to prepare his defense. That is a very, very useful response. Now what I do, colleagues, is as the line manager, I'm preparing for the disciplinary inquiry because I'm initiating the matter against Kevin. So now what I do is I say, please draft an opening statement that I can use to sketch the case against Kevin and to ensure the chairperson has context. So it will now draft me an opening statement. Thank you, chairperson. I'm presenting this case to you against Kevin, an employee under my supervision. On this date, he arrived at 8:20, 20 minutes late. Upon his arrival, I observed he had bloodshot eyes. So, colleagues, you can see there's the opening statement. I now say thank you. Now, before I continue, Courtney mentioned something about saying thank you and please. Colleagues, artificial intelligence revolves around two key principles. The one is semantics. Semantics talks to the meaning of words. So when I say draft charges, it fully understands what the word charge means. So that is the semantic. So you've got to be as accurate as possible. The second one is the sentiment. What's incredible is it picks up your sentiment. It actually understands the emotion that you are wanting to convey. And by saying thank you, it reinforces that emotional engagement. But I say thank you. Please draft 10 questions in evidence in chief. And that is open-ended questions that I can ask of my own company witnesses, and which will prove that Kevin was, that Kevin was aware of the rules, comma, that they are reasonable, and that they're aware of the rules, that they're reasonable, and that Kevin contravened these rules. So what it does now, it gives you a list of questions in evidence in chief. In other words, leading questions, or rather leading evidence from your own witnesses. Now you can see where the issue of semantics comes in, because remember, when you leading evidence from your own witnesses, you cannot put words in their mouth. So can you please describe the company's policy regarding cannabis use? How are employees, including Kevin, informed of these policies? What training has been provided? So you can see it's a question or a range of questions that can be used to lead evidence in chief. Now you say, please please change these questions into questions in cross-examination, and in brackets, leading questions that I can use to cross-examine Kevin. Okay, so now you can imagine I'm sitting in the disciplinary inquiry. I'm now going to cross-examine Kevin when it's my opportunity. I say, Kevin, you're aware of the company's strict policy against cannabis use and impairment, aren't you? And hopefully Kevin will say yes. Then the company provided you with a copy of the policy. I knew you were going to do that, Kev. So it worked. Do you understand that impairment can significantly impact workplace safety? So colleagues, it gives you this insight. It helps you prepare for these particular issues. Now, I'm going to stop at that point, but I want to just tell you the following. I've actually, after having chaired a disciplinary inquiry, I've actually uploaded the minutes of the meeting. I've uploaded witnesses' statements. I've uploaded the disciplinary code and the relevant policies. And I've even asked Claude to advise me whether or not we should find Kevin guilty on a balance of probabilities. Colleagues, it then not only gives you insight into telling you whether or not you should find Kevin guilty, but it gives you all the reasons why, based on the evidence. It even sometimes gives case references, and off the back of that, it might even, after aggravation and mitigation, it might even suggest that you should fire them. So, colleagues, unbelievable stuff in respect of AI. Now, I've successfully used the same principles in doing workplace skills plans, in drafting employment equity plans. The opportunities are endless, colleagues. They really, really are. Now, just in conclusion, before I hand back to Albie, is to say to you, remember I started off with slides about your sector, your job type, and the tasks that you do. Colleagues, just in this brief time that we've had with you, you can only now start to imagine the significant skill sets that will be required and change, because now I can use the extra time to do other things. I can use it to be more creative and innovative. I can embed myself in the world of my clients. I can be more creative, and really, to be quite honest, it's very difficult for other firms to match what we've shown you. So you can go to a traditional attorney's firm and they'll charge you 4,000 Rand an hour, and they will take their conventional approach and they will, bill you per phone call and bill you per note and bill you per email, and they'll bill you for 4 hours. Or you can go to an advisor who uses AI, take an hour, give you a better result at a quarter of the price. So we need to also understand in your industry, TESs, staffing solutions, the closer you get to your clients now and you look at 5 years hence, the more you can support them, not only on workforce staffing, but on training interventions, on a whole range of opportunities. Well, colleagues, we hope you enjoyed that. Just once again, thank you so much to Courtney for her time and for that great explanation. Thank you to all of you for joining us. If you need any assistance, you know how to get hold of me. And with that, I'll hand back to you. Thank you.
Hi, John. It's Lisa here. Unfortunately, Albie had to step out. I would like to thank you on behalf of the TSD and our members for a great webinar. It was really, really, really full of insight and incredible enlightening, and you provided a clear understanding of the complexities and the great opportunities that is involved in AI. Your expertise and ability to communicate this complex ideas is such clear and engaging manner made the webinar really informative for us and our members. It's truly inspiring to work through the exercise presented by Courtney, and to utilize Claude and the Copilot was particularly impactful. Thanks once again for your knowledge and the expertise, and we're really looking forward to have you again hosting a webinar soon.
Thank you so much, Lisa, and all the best to you and the colleagues.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. I thought you were a friend.